What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and today I'm going to be reviewing and recapping The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, entitled Through the Valley. But guess what, guys? You don't have to go through the valley, over the mountain, across the river, any of that stuff to subscribe to my channel. No, you just got to hit that little button down below, and you know you want to. But maybe some of you are saying, hey, I like what this guy is saying, but I don't want to see his ugly mug. Well, good news. You can just listen on your podcast catcher of choice. Hey, but if you do stick around on the YouTube channel, why not, while you're there, give me a like, give me a comment, give me a review, all that good stuff to help me out. Maybe you're like, I don't like this guy's voice or his ugly mug. Well, you can still follow me on social media and see some cool comic book art and geeky stuff. So where, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can follow me on Twitter at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive, or on Blue Sky at Enjoying the Review. All right, guys, let's get into it. I got to say right off the bat, guys, I'm happy to report this was a great episode. In fact, maybe my favorite episode of The Last of Us so far, including season one. Although it has been a bit since I watched season one, so maybe there would be, but no, I really like this episode. So one of the things I like most about it, if you didn't catch my review of the last episode, I said one of the downfalls of this, the Last of Us show, is I think it sometimes adheres too closely to the video game. So if you have played the video games like I have, you almost know too much and you don't have a sense of discovery. But they had a whole action scene in this episode. By the way, spoilers ahoy! I'm just going to get into it. You know, the horde of infected against the Wyoming, Jacksonville, Wyoming town. None of that was in the game, and I thought it was a very thrilling sequence in this episode. I loved it. I thought it was great, fantastic stuff. So kudos. Just lots of fast zombies, explosions ahoy, fire, a big old bloater, just great stuff. Great stuff. But even the stuff that, did go where we knew it was gonna go, ended up being really great. And so, of course, I'm referencing the big scene that anyone who has played The Last of Us 2 knew was coming: the death of Joel. That's right. I gotta say, I was surprised that they did it this early on in the season. I almost thought they would kind of find a way to expand the story or tell it in a slightly different way to, make it so this scene happened almost towards the end of this season. And I'm glad they didn't, by the way. I'm kind of glad they got it out of the way here. And by the way, I am sure we will still be seeing Joel in flashbacks, just like we do in the actual game. So anyone who's like, no, Pedro, you'll get to see Pedro again. I'm sure of it. And speaking of that scene, shout out to Kaitlyn Dever as Abby, who I thought did great. I talked about how last week I thought, it might have been cool if she did kind of bulk up and get the Abby arms and all that stuff. Could have been cool. But when you see her performance, you're like, you don't need that. Like, that's all you really need is a great performance. And I thought she nailed it. I thought she did a great job. So shout out to her, who I think acting-wise was probably the highlight of this episode, even though everybody did a great job. However, I wrote down, being that this scene did come this early, it makes me wonder, like, where do you guys think this season is actually going to end. For those of you that have played the game, do you think that Abby and Ellie will actually have a physical confrontation by the end of this season? I kind of think that is where the crescendo could be for this season. Like either they're about to meet up, or maybe they go as far as having, I don't want to ruin it for anyone who maybe hasn't played the game. But I I kind of think for the most of the season we're not, it's going to be the chase, and you're wondering how they're going to end up intertwining. And then maybe, like I said, maybe by the end of the season we get a tease of them coming together again and getting in a confrontation. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And then the other thing I noted, and I guess this would be true in the game as well, is Abby's actions force Ellie to kind of end things with Joel on a bad note. Like they were fighting, and she had that chance last episode to go and mend fences with him and talk to him, and she didn't. And so Abby leaves her not only, with the death of Joel, but with this feeling she has to take with her for the rest of her life. But, of course, we got Abby's side of the story, and, Joel took her father from her. I like the whole point of view thing here, because I don't know if they'll do this, but in the game we get a little section where we get to play as a younger version of Abby and see her interact with her dad. At least I believe so. Anyway, it's been a couple of years, I think, since I played the game, but I know there is a section with younger Abby, and so you get invested more in her. So you see her side, because I bet a lot of people just watching this episode hate Abby, but then it's like, you get her side of the story, and you kind of, that's all it takes is seeing the other person's side of the story, and that's what makes it compelling. Is Ellie and Abby, their actions on both sides of the fence are understandable. You see where their motivation is, and if you put yourself in their boots, you're like, well, you know what? If I was in Abby's boots, I would want to kill Joel just probably as badly as she did, and so, definitely makes for a compelling story. So I think those are kind of my top level thoughts, guys. So now I'm going to get into the recap of the episode, get into the nitty gritty details. So let's do it, guys. So we start out with Abby having a nightmare about the day she found her dad dead. I will say they use this narrative device where she's talking to her past self, being like, "Oh, you don't want to go in that room," and I'm like, nobody actually dreams like that. So it's fine. It's a flight of fancy, I guess. But I think there's certain things in TV shows that are used too much. The other one I think that's overused is when a character is dead, but the person who's alive still talks to them. I hope they don't have a scene like that here, where maybe Ellie starts imagining she's talking to Joel, because that's another thing I think is overused in storytelling. But anyway, yeah, she has a nightmare about her dad. She wakes up. She's in a lodge overlooking the Jackson, Wyoming city. And so her and her group kind of scout the city, and they see that it's well guarded, and they're like, you know, even if we got in there, we wouldn't know where Joel is. So like they're wondering, what Abby wants to do. So Abby's idea is she wants to ambush a patrol and force them to talk and tell them where Joel is. And like one of her teammates is like, well, we don't, we're not here to kill anybody that's not Joel. So like, what if they don't talk? It's like, we can't just let them go. And like, and they're also, leery of Abby. They're like, what are you going to do to make them talk? And she's like, we'll just interrogate. Like, I think she kind of says nothing physical, but, we all know, like, she's too mad that it would get physical, So yeah, she wants to do that, but the others kind of think it's too risky. One of her teammates says that he is forming a plan. And so Abby's like, okay. And then she goes out on patrol. But as soon as she leaves, he basically tells the others that the plan is to convince her to go back and give up on her revenge plot. I don't know if they've said that guy in her group's name. If I remember right in the game, like, he was romantically involved with like another person in that group, but then like, well, I don't want to spoil it in case they do it in the game or in the show as well. But yeah, I don't remember his name. Ellie is woken up by Jesse to go on patrol, and they have kind of an awkward exchange about Dina, about how she kissed Ellie, and she's like, I hope you're not weirded out by it. And he has a thing where he's like, no, I don't even care. No, but it was messed up that you did that. And they just have like kind of this weird, awkward exchange about it. Jesse tells Ellie about a group. Okay, this I thought was maybe a bit blatant as far as foreshadowing goes. Jesse tells Ellie about a group of infected that, like, a group was on patrol. They found this cabin. There was a bunch of infected frozen in the snow. And then there was a bunch of alive infected underneath them that were, like, smart enough to use the other bodies as insulation. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But then they literally put in that line just to set up exactly what would happen with Abby later on in the episode. And then I was like, oh, maybe they didn't need that. Maybe it would have been better just to like see the surprise. But maybe they were like, well, if we don't tell, people are going to wonder how they survived down there. Whatever, I don't know. Which I don't think anyone would have. They're just been like, they're infected. They're the undead. Whatever. So Ellie tells Jesse that she is going to go on patrol with Joel. And he informs her that Joel already went out on patrol with Dina an hour earlier. Jesse tells Ellie that they are going to go to the restaurant to meet with Maria, who is Tommy's wife / like council member of the city or whatever. When they get there, Tommy is giving a speech to the people. He says that if they are ever attacked by infected, like the children and maybe like their mothers will barricade themselves in the cellars and the basements, and then everybody else will go to the roofs of the buildings with guns and pick off the infected. So Maria brings Ellie to Seth, and he basically kind of forces him to apologize for what he called her the night before at the dance. And you can tell Ellie's kind of uncomfortable, and like, she probably assumes that he's just doing it because Maria's making him, and she just kind of wants to be out of there, Um, as Ellie and Jesse ride out, they see that a storm is coming. Um, Again, kind of an obvious metaphor, but it's fine. It's fine. So Abby spots a patrol in her binoculars, and we see that she is visibly angry. Now, I don't think it ever explicitly says that the patrol she saw is like Joel or even Ellie. Um, it seems like she was somewhat close to the city, so I don't know if it would make sense for it to be Joel. I don't know. But anyway, she's going to follow this two-person patrol that's on horseback. I mean, I guess it would make more sense if it was Joel, given where she ends up, but I don't know. Anyway, the storm quickly starts getting worse. So Tommy has this woman named Amy, that's the radio person, call everybody to come back to the city. So Jesse gets a call from her on the radio, but he says that they are too far out to turn back. So he's going to shelter. He knows a place where they can find shelter for the night, or until the storm blows over, whatever. So they end up hiding in this gas station that's full of marijuana. Um, and I should mention this differs from the game as well. In the game, it was Ellie and Dina who goes on patrol, and they do end up finding marijuana, but it wasn't um, in a gas station. It was like in another type of building. So some slight differences here. Um, Je- Jesse said Eugene was the one that grew the marijuana there. And then Ellie finds Eugene's Firefly dog tags. Jesse says that Eugene used to be a Firefly, but he stopped a long time ago because he said he was tired of killing people. While following the patrol, Abby accidentally slides down a steep cliff and ends up sliding into a pile of bodies. So she gets up and she notices that these bodies are all infected, and then the ground begins to move and the infected start coming out of the snow. Like I mentioned earlier, exactly as they set up in that uh, Jesse's dialogue from earlier. And I think would have been better just to not have Jesse's dialogue from earlier. Not that it's a big deal, but anyway, the infected start chasing Abby. And again, I do agree with the whole zombie thing where like I do like the 28 days later fast zombies rather than the slow lumbering type. It makes for a more thrilling um you know action scenes in these things. But yeah, she gets chased and she's forced to climb over a wall and behind a fenced in area that they then start pressing against on the fence. Again, this is taken directly from the video game and looks very, very similar, almost identical. And that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, when I see this stuff in the show, I'm like, probably didn't have to adhere quite so close so that it looks, so similar. But that's what they do here. So Abby almost gets bitten, but she ends up being saved by who? That's right, Joel. And I do like this narratively, that he saves her life before she takes his. It's just a nice little narrative wrinkle that I really enjoy. Um, so Joel and Dina don't know where to go that is safe because like the infected are closing in on this building they're in. And so Abby tells them about her lodge and tells them that, hey, I got supplies there. And a group that can help us and all that. So they decide to take her to this lodge. Next, Amy, the radio woman, tells Tommy that she cannot get a hold of Joel on the radio. So that she then radios Jesse and tells him, something's up. We can't get a hold of Joel. So Ellie and Jesse decide to pursue Joel. Back at the city, a man tries to clear the roots out of the pipe from episode 1 and discovers the tendrils inside. I gotta say, this is still intriguing me. I don't know exactly where they're going with this. This was not something from the game. And so I like that. I like, these are the things I find I'm enjoying the most in the show, are the things that, I don't know about that can catch me off guard. And I don't know exactly where they're going with this root system thing, or if it's just more symbolization of how screwed everybody is, and the storm that's coming, another thing like that. But I think they're going to do something else with it. I just don't know what. So Ellie and Jesse decide to split up to cover more ground. The old Scooby-Doo approach that always always works out well. Okay, so we get this scene where the horde of infected are chasing after Joel and Dina as they're on horseback. And, they definitely used visual effects here to create more infected, but it looks very good. And as they're chasing after them, it catches the attention of more infected on the hillside, so they start to come down. And I was a little confused as to what happens here, because these two groups kind of mix together, and then they start going, instead of following Joel, they break off and they start going towards the city. So Tommy and, the people on watch at the city, they see the horde coming and they start to prepare. So they put up, I think tractors to barricade the wall, reinforce the wall. Some of them put on flamethrower packs. And like they discussed earlier, the children go down lock themselves in the cellars. All the adults go to the roof. Well, most of the adults, some of them stayed in the cellars with the kids or whatever. But most of the adults go to the rooftops with guns and they prepare. We also see them lower these metal things off the sides of the walls, so we know they're going to do something with them. And what they end up doing with those is, and I thought this was cool, they toss out barrels of I assume gasoline, shoot a few holes in them so it spreads the fuel, and then they throw lit torches down, and this causes massive explosions that blow up a large chunk of infected. This scene I thought worked really well. I thought it looked great. You're just chaos everywhere, infected being blown up. They're using their guns to pick off the rest of them. Looked really good. So this gets Joel's attention. He sees the explosions in the distance and he wants to go back. But Abby assures him that they are almost at the lodge and that they have resources that can help in the fight. So he continues on towards the lodge. In the distance, Tommy hears a roaring. And when he looks, he sees that there is a huge bloater running towards the city. And so he can tell, oh man, when this thing gets here, it's going to be tough enough to breach the walls. So Tommy goes to Main Street and he kind of yells at everyone, lets them know that they're going to breach. And he puts on one of the flamethrower packs. So sure enough, the infected start to overwhelm everybody. They break through the walls and they start taking out people both on the streets and the rooftops, and like they're very fast and they're running. They run right up onto the rooftops and you know start attacking people, and it's just chaos everywhere. And I thought this whole action sequence was done very well, very thrilling. At one point, Maria she is concentrating her gunfire on the bloater, and it just seems to be annoying it, and it kind of looks at her. And Tommy can, you know, tell that it's kind of looking like it's going to go towards Maria, so he shoots at it to get its attention and lure the bloater away from Maria. So Tommy ends up getting cornered by the bloater and uses his flamethrower basically until it runs out. And like he thinks this thing's gonna get him, and luckily it falls over dead, like right next to him. So um, these bloaters, man, they're made for tough. It took a whole canister of flamethrower to knock it down. You know, there's I kind of wonder. There's in the game there's kind of a very hard section where Ellie goes up against a bloater, and I wonder if they'll do that or not. I don't think it's necessary, but you know, maybe. Um, oh, I also like this. So Maria runs into this building and opens dog cages so that the dogs can get on the fight as well and go after the infected, which is cool. Um, so Joel and Dina make it to the lodge with Abby. Dina sees the WLF tag on someone's backpack and kind of right away she's like, "Who are you guys?" She can tell something's up. So Abby, she's talking to one of the other people, and she's like, "Her name is Dina, and this is Joel." And at that point, one of them takes Dina hostage, puts a gun to her head, so that Joel will comply. They end up injecting Dina with something that they say will put her to sleep for 1 hour. And then Abby threatens to kill Dina if Joel does not tell her the truth. Now, one thing I like is that Abby's group doesn't just like, they aren't totally in the bag with going along with Abby's violence. Like, they're very unsettled. They can tell she's telling the truth when she says, like, she would hurt Dina if Joel doesn't tell her the truth. And so they're kind of taken aback by her level of violence, which I like. I like that they're just not all like, you know, cartoonish versions that are just like, oh yeah, we, totally in support of her. But, they ultimately go along with her, but you can tell they're uncomfortable. So Abby asked Joel where the last place he saw the Fireflies alive was, and he says Salt Lake. And she says, well, at least you're honest. Joel tells Abby that he saved her life. And she says, what life? And then she shoots him right in the leg and puts him down. And this is where Kaitlyn Dever's performance really goes into effect. Like, you really believe in her, like, visceral anger here. And that, she cannot get over what happened to her father. So Abby tells her teammate to tourniquet Joel's leg. Because as she said in the first episode of this season, she wants him to die slowly in agony, Once again, her teammates seem uncomfortable with what she is doing. Abby tells tells Joel her backstory, and that the doctor he killed was her father. I would have liked it here if Joel had a piece of dialogue that was like, I'm sorry, but your father was gonna kill my girl, just to see what Abby's response to that would have been. She says that She was 19 when Joel killed her father, and that she's now been in a militia for 5 years. And in that militia, they live by a code that you do not kill someone that cannot defend themselves. But she says she is going to kill Joel. As Abby is monologuing, Joel tells her to shut up and do it already. So she grabs a golf club and she tells him that he does not get to rush this. And she starts beating his leg with a golf club. So, she's really trying to torture him here. So Ellie sees the town burning in the distance, but she also sees the horse tracks leading up the mountain. So she follows them. Abby now has Joel down, and she's just punching him in the face over and over and over. And we can see now his face is a bloody pulp. And again, her teammates are like, "Come on, Abby, just end it." Like, it's getting very uncomfortable here. Ellie finds the lodge. She enters the room. She sees Joel, but Abby's teammates are able to wrestle her to the ground. And this was a very effective scene, so we got to give it up to Bella Ramsey too. She screams at Joel to continue, like, get up, and then screams at Abby not to kill him. But Abby ends up stabbing him in the neck with, like, the broken golf club and killing him. Now, I believe in the game she just, like, bashed in his head with the full golf club, so I think a little bit of a change here. Ellie yells at Abby that she is going to kill her, and yells at the rest of them she's going to kill them all. So one of them kick her in the stomach really hard, and they leave. She crawls over to Joel's body and pulls out the golf club out of his neck, and then she just kind of lays on top of him and cries. The song Through the Valley starts to play, and I noted, because I have subtitles on, and it's performed by Ashley Johnson, who, of course, is the voice actress of Ellie in the video games. She also had a cameo in season 1 and played Ellie's mother, so it's a nice little nod to her, I think. Tommy and Maria hold each other in the aftermath of the town's attack, and it's devastating. Like, they got all the infected down, but, like, who knows how many of them are dead? A lot of them. So, and the town is just, like, in shambles. So Jesse shows up to the lodge, and he, Ellie, and Dina leave the lodge on horseback, and behind their horse, they drag Joel's dead body wrapped up in a sheet. So a very solemn end, but a very impactful episode. Lots of action. And, a very pivotal scene. Probably, arguably the most pivotal scene from both the video games. Done very well here. I would love to see people's reaction that have not played the game, seeing this scene. Because I got to believe it would have been much more surprising and much more impactful. This is one of those things where knowing the source material kind of detracts from your enjoyment a little bit because you know what's coming. But that being said, they did it very well. And, my fingers crossed as we get more stuff like the fight with the city. Not necessarily just saying, like, action pack stuff, just like stuff for us that have played the game, to have a sense of discovery and not know what's coming, So, guys, love the episode. Curious what you think. Like, maybe I forgot to say this at the top, but I would give this a 9 out of 10. I thought this was super duper solid. Loved it. Thought it was great. So, guys, I think that's going to do it for today's show. As a reminder, please, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. Like I said, you can listen in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. And you can follow me on social media, either on Twitter at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive, or on Blue Sky at Enjoying the Review. But until next time, guys, I hope you are enjoying the review. Bye, guys.